Welcome, skeptics and truth seekers, to Schoolhouse Crock, the podcast that fearlessly exposes the real deal behind public education in the state of Colorado. I am your host, Stacey Castile, and on this show, we are not here to sugarcoat. We are here to unveil the truth, challenge the norms, and unpack the crock of you-know-what that often goes unnoticed in the realm of education. On today's episode, I have a guest, Bryan Sullivan. Bryan, can you introduce yourself for us, please?
Hi, my name's Bryan Sullivan, and I am a parent of two kids that are currently going to Frontier High School. My son is 17 years old. My daughter is 14 years old. I also am the husband of a current board member on District 6
Awesome. And how long have your kids been going to Frontier for?
since about the sixth grade.
Okay. And was that when you decided to take them out of the regular school district?
We did have them at Westridge. They first started out in kindergarten at Montfort, and then they went to Westridge. And then we actually had them on the list to get into Frontier. And when we were on the list, we were always told, oh, it was a good school. It was great. It was above par. And so we finally got acceptance to that, and they've been in it ever since.
My daughter was originally, when she was 6 months old, I put her on the wait list for Frontier. All the ladies that I worked with, their kids went there and they were like, oh, you need to have your kids in that school. It's so much better. At that time, my then stepson was in District 6, and I could see just how they were failing him. So we also started out kind of hoping to go to Frontier, and then, but like we said, everybody says that it was better. Is that something that you have found to be true?
No, not at all. I found a lot of things at the school to be not above board. They teach a lot of things that they don't want the parents to learn about. They teach basically about what they want to teach. Their curriculum is very veiled. I've asked to go into my kids' classroom, and you have to give them a two-day notice, and yeah, so they can kind of prepare for what they want you to hear.
Definitely. We're also going to be covering some, topics with District 6 today. Like you stated, your children were once in the district, and then your wife is currently on the board with the district. And just some of the things that you've seen kind of as a bystander. Obviously, there's things that she's not allowed to tell us,
Right.
but just the perception you've gotten. Also, you did submit some of the complaints about the books in the district, that a majority of them are being kept. So I know that recently you had the opportunity to go into Frontier to have a discussion with something that you saw with one of your students. Can you get into that a little bit for me?
Sure. I had received a email from the school saying that we're going to be reading these two books and a podcast also, and they wanted to know if it was okay for my 17-year-old boy Tyler to participate in. And I said that was fine, and but I wanted to do my own research, so I got the book. I read the book. It was actually called The Namesake, and I listened to the podcast too, which both of them, I believe together, they were over 10 and a half hours long. So it wasn't a little book to go through. But yeah, the namesake was basically about a Indian couple that had an arranged marriage, and they came over to the U.S. with pretty much only two suitcases, and they worked their way up. It was a kind of good story at the beginning, It was
That's how it always starts.
right. Yeah, yeah, and it was. I don't know. I don't read too many books, but as far as it being an up and down kind of thing, it grabbed your attention at times, but then it didn't. I would say it's more of an adult book. They want to say it's to learn about life, basically. Um, but it had a lot of multiple scenes describing sex acts, had detailed drug abuse, alcohol abuse, cheating on spouses, multiple sex partners, physical abuse between spouses. Had a lot of stuff in there that I didn't really think that kids should be reading
Well,
in
don't you
school.
think in a way it kind of normalizes it,
It
right?
does.
So then if, let's say, we'll go cheating, right? I had always been a huge advocate that my kids weren't going to date young because there's always some cheating, oh, he talked to her or she looked at him and now I'm heartbroken and devastated. And we start to carry this level of resentment or all men are bad, or just that kind of ideology. And then we start to carry it into adulthood once you start to normalize or talk about cheating, then it becomes, well, he cheats on me or she cheats on me, but I stay, or, I do it because they're just going to do it. And it normalizes it.
Yeah.
And it gets kids to think that although this isn't an ideal relationship outcome, it's a healthy or a normal relationship outcome.
Right. And it did describe life. I mean, as an adult, you go through all these things. But my point was to the principal that I talked to was, why don't you let the kids be kids? Why do you want to indoctrinate them into the realities of an adult life? They're still kids. Let them enjoy being a kid. Uh, I, I didn't I didn't particularly like the whole overall book, but I really liked the aspect of the family coming over to the US and living the American dream. They went to the father was a professor, went to a college. They worked their way up from nothing, and they actually had a pretty good life. Um, but I don't know if the teacher has actually went into that part of it. I don't know what the teacher has actually taught in the class about this book. I know they've had discussions. I've talked to my son about they've had discussions about uh, them coming over to America and um, them enjoying the holidays and going places, but nothing in depth as to what the book is really teaching.
My daughter is involved in a musical, Mean Girls, and I was pretty horrified when I saw it. My husband and I were just befuddled. We'd been warned, and it has a PG-13 label. And so, as I was kind of expressing some of my concerns to a couple of friends, they'd asked me, well, like, what does your daughter think about it? And I said, I think the biggest problem is that this isn't that far off from what high school truly is like. And so to hear this or, see these things is not so unusual. And I almost wonder that too, like with your son and reading about, the multiple sex partners. I mean, I think that's unfortunately a very common thing now in high school. And so it's not necessarily ringing that bell that this is not okay, there's a problem with this, or see some of the things that we see because it's become so normalized for them.
Right. And that's the big thing I don't like about the schools, especially like my kids have been in this charter school Frontier for quite a while. And so I really don't know what the District 6 schools are like, but it does really seem like they're taking their childhood away and they're wanting the kids to conform to this new reality that they're teaching. It just doesn't seem like they're giving the kids a chance to be kids.
I agree. One of the other things that they talked about in the musical was a girl was talking about how when she was 13, she was sending nudes to a boy. And because she was only 13, she didn't know to crop her head out. And then he shared it and stuff. And the underlying message that boys shouldn't do that, I agree 100%.
Right.
But also, can we tell our daughters not to take nudes for little boys that we can trust? Like,
Right.
there's a reason there's a law against doing that and sharing them and the ramifications for that because it's not safe, but we are normalizing it. We're saying that well, girls should be able to do that if they want to, and it's the boys that are the problem. Well, let's maybe teach our daughters to be kids. And at 13, oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's society, unfortunately. But the schools aren't doing anything to change that. The morality of of our school system and the morality of our school boards, our morality in general of the general public has dropped significantly in the last 40 to 50 years.
100%. And I had warned my mom before the musical, and she was kind of laughing because she knows what I was like as a teenager, and I was probably more on this side than where I'm at now today. And I said, maybe I've just matured. Maybe I've just, grown up and I see the errors in my way, and I've had to live the life coming off of those decisions that I was making in high school. And I wish that we could protect our kids from that. Oftentimes I've said to my daughter, I wish that I could touch you and you would learn all my life experiences. And then you wouldn't have to go through them and learn them the hard way like I did. So when we see our kids having their childhoods be taken, because the reality is this is taking away childhood of children just by reading a book.
Right.
But what about the children whose childhoods are being taken because, you know, inappropriate stuff is being forced upon them in real life, And so we have this big issue in that aspect already, but now we're just kind of adding to the problem by exposing children to inappropriate.
Right. I wonder where our morality is. You see it everywhere, in music, and you see it in entertainment. You see it in the movies. You see it everywhere. But where? My question to the teachers and the school board is, where are all the heroes? Where are the people that you look up to? Who are the kids going to look up to in the society? And I don't see a lot of that in the teaching in this school in Frontier anyway. They're not given heroes. They're not looking. They don't have somebody to look up to.
Well, I think too, and if they do have heroes, it's whoever the biggest social media influencer is at the time, and how many likes did they get, and how many shares did they get, and how much money. I actually had a conversation with a teacher, and he said, all of his students want to be famous. They don't want to be a famous basketball player. They don't want to be a famous musician. They just want to be famous. They don't care how it happens. They just want that fame and notoriety. And, it's become this self centered, I only care about myself kind of mentality. And I think that's, where our morality issue is,
Right.
we are no longer looking up to people who were courageous or strong or stood for something.
Right.
It's more of sacrifice themselves, even sell their souls if you want to go that far to get to this point. And how can I get to that point as well?
Right.